So, and they say recording has started. So now you're recording, huh?
I almost forgot to hit. Well, we were broadcasting, but I forgot to hit the record. So let me see. Try that again. And we're trying to get a guest on, but he's having some technical difficulties. He just messaged me, so
Well, we'll make
we'll see
sure.
how
Well,
that.
when he gets on, we'll make sure we talk with him. So you guys gonna like the guy that we have coming on.
Let's see. Do. All right. Well, hopefully he can get on. All right. So we got a bunch of people hopping on. So as you guys hop on, if you guys have questions, post them out there. We'll go back through the questions as we can. But I guess to start off, well, I don't even know where to start off. Like it was. I actually don't even know what to ask you. Like it was a train wreck we were watching. So I guess give me your thoughts on the game.
Well, I'm gonna start off by saying this. It's a sad day, not only in Nebraska, but I'm here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and there's a lot of Nebraska alumni here. And people are just the attitude and the mood around here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, with Nebraska fans. They're disappointed, they're hurt, they're depressed, simply because Nebraska didn't find a way to show up yesterday. And when you're at home in front of 90,000 people, the one thing you should not let happen is a game start off the way it did. And actually, I was flying. I landed in Dallas Airport just in time for kickoff, and so I was able to watch the first half. And then I got on a plane to fly to Tulsa and was able to listen to the fourth quarter on my phone. But just from the first half, it was disappointing. Not simply because they were making way too many mistakes in the special teams, and then offensively, the problem that I had with the first drive was that you're driving the ball down the field and you get down into the red zone, 2nd and 3, you throw the ball. To me, that bothers me. And I understand the philosophy of the West Coast offense, the philosophy of what they're trying to accomplish. But you had been running the ball somewhat successfully there. You have 2 downs to get 3 yards. Why not try to run the football there? Because once you throw a pass down there, there's two things that can happen that are negative: incomplete pass or interception. And look what happened. The guy read the route because they've been running so many bubble routes on tape to where the guy knew it was going to come, stepped in front of the pass and took it back for a touchdown. To me, right there, changed the whole complexity of the game. Right there. And that's when I knew this is going to be a difficult day, because what they did there, I kind of felt that they weren't really prepared about what Northern Illinois was going to do.
All right. Well, everybody says so. Just to stop for a second, I verified. Everybody says the video and audio is coming out good, so that's great. Because for those that don't know, if this interrupts anywhere where Tommy's talking, we're trying something new we haven't done before, so there's always the potential for technical difficulties. I would agree. Like I missed the very first series there, and then I was running kids to sports and everything, and I got back, and I missed that first return. I seen it later, but. And I'm not an analyst or anything else, but in my mind, I would think that 2nd and 3 to the end zone. The fact that we're not taking advantage of the run game that we have, especially with what we've seen the last few weeks. I know Bryant's not in there, but I just think that was I hate to say it. I don't even want to say it because it's a Monday morning
Right.
quarterback situation, right? Because I'm not qualified to say this, but in the same sense, I would think that is absolutely crazy because Nebraska's always been known for smash mouth football. And if you want to establish the power run game, or you want fans to be back on your side, like that is those are the moments that bring fans, into the mix and back
Well,
into the.
for me, it's not even the Nebraska being a smash mouth football team. Okay, for me, that series there, that play there, should have showed Northern Illinois to say, "Hey, we're going to come out and we're going to pound the ball at you in the red zone. We're not going to sit here and try to dink and drop passes. We're going to come right at you. You got two downs to get a first down. So let's say you only get a yard on 2nd down. So now you have 3rd and 2. You still have the opportunity to run the ball or throw the ball into the end zone. But to throw a bubble screen on first of all, the field has shrunken, so those corners don't have to play off. So they can play closer. And they're taught to read the inside receiver when you got the trips like that, especially a team that throws the bubble screen. And the guy made a great play on it. I thought it was a horrible call. I thought it was a great drive going down the field. But I thought those two plays in the red zone, that set the whole momentum for me that I knew it was going to be a tough day. I knew Nebraska didn't come ready to play.
No, the offense looked very shabby. I will say the black shirts seemed like they at least came up. I don't even want to say they came to play, but they were able to at least keep it contained somewhat. Because Northern Illinois, I don't know if you realize this, especially because you're traveling, but they were playing with their backup quarterback. It wasn't even their starting quarterback in there. So
Well, and that's what's the disappointing part, to where they came in here and went into Memorial Stadium and beat Nebraska with their second string quarterback. Offensively, they only scored one touchdown the whole game. They didn't move the ball up and down the field much, but they beat Nebraska with a backup quarterback. That's unheard of, and that's uncalled for.
It is crazy. Yeah. Well, I think who was it? Not Wyoming, Southern Mississippi, maybe. The Screaming Eagles or something like that came into Nebraska. They came in with a backup quarterback and came really close. And that was maybe 2007, 8. It was right of those years. And that wasn't a good game. But Todd says we're 7-0 with Ezekbo as the starting tailback. Which he just made that statement, which he didn't really answer the question, but I think that's interesting because we did finally see Ezekbo a little bit in the game yesterday, but he clearly didn't have a predominant role. He wasn't a starter. He was in there very little, but we did see him finally in the game yesterday. But I think that's interesting that we're 7-0 with Ezekbo. That's probably more coincidence than anything because Brian has been very.
I can't. I'm not. Maybe we are 7-0 with Ezekbo, but there's a reason why he's not playing. And that's all I'm going to say on that. It's hard to say we're 7-0 with this guy playing when obviously he didn't win the job coming out of camp. So obviously there's a reason why he's not playing. But I was just happy to see him back in the field. Maybe he's getting healthier to where he can play. But I do know the first couple weeks he was injured. But I didn't think Wilbon did a bad job yesterday. He almost had 100 yards on 24 carries. To me, the problem with what happened yesterday, it fell on the offensive line, and it fell on the quarterback's decision in the passing game. Those are the two main aspects of what happened yesterday. And if anybody saw something different, please tell me, because I don't know what game you're looking at. We had an offensive line who couldn't protect. I mean, it wasn't like they were tricky blitz packages. It's like every time the quarterback dropped back, he was getting hit. That's unheard of. And then you had a quarterback who's throwing in double, triple coverage or throwing behind receivers. There was something going on there. And so for me, those were the two major parts of that game where the quarterback decisions weren't very good and the offensive line couldn't block anything on pass protection.
All right, looks like we got our guest back with us.
Oh, yes, looks like he's drinking some water, too.
I got to stay hydrated.
Well, Tommy, you missed it, Adam. Tommy was kind of gave his overview of what he thought of the game, but now that you're with us, what do you think? Get your input on what you thought of the game and where the major breakdowns were. And then we have a bunch of questions coming in on Facebook that I'll run through here in a few.
I heard the end of what Tommy said. I'll start with the defense because I'm a defensive guy. The Black Shirts played better. I thought they actually played really well. There was times the defensive line got pushed around. Wasn't thrilled to see that. But they got a little bit more pressure on them, 2 or 3 sacks. Khalil Davis played pretty well. The last 6 quarters, we've gone up 1 touchdown. The only problem was when we needed to make the stop, we couldn't get the stop. So that was the one issue there. Special teams-wise, I tell you what, DeMornay Pearsonell is as dynamic a returner as there is. But every time there's a punt right now, I have no idea what to expect. They got to review that 10-yard line rule with him. Put his heels at the 10-yard line, goes over your head, don't catch it. In front of you, catch it. With your fair catch or returns, up to you. We did get a little bit lucky with their special teams guffaw. They gave us a touchdown. They missed a field goal as well. We had one blocked. On offense, I kind of agree with what I heard Tommy saying. Offensive line and quarterback. I thought Mikhail, there just didn't seem to be a whole lot of spark with the offense yesterday. I don't know. The flu, I heard about that. The early game. I mean, to me, if you're cleared and you're playing, you put the pads on. Football is football. And Mikhail, he clearly put out good effort. I was happy to see that. Mm-hmm. Offensive line did not look good. Quarterback did not look good. I mean, everything Tommy said about the offense, about how I feel.
James on Facebook asked you guys if you guys would consider bringing in Patrick O'Brien at this point.
For me, with the way the offensive line protected yesterday, you can have Patrick O'Brien, you can have Doug Flutie, you can have Steve McNair. It doesn't matter. They're not going to be successful with the way the offensive line played yesterday. So let's just get that right out of the way. Now, it could have been one of those deals to when things got when like first, especially in the first quarter when he threw those two pick six and a touchdown. Maybe that could have been a time to where you point him to the sideline, talk with him, put Patrick O'Brien there or Jebby or whoever for a series so he can gain his composure back. But they didn't do that. And so you can tell that he wasn't playing with a lot of confidence because he didn't know what was going to happen. And it also plays into every time you drop back, you're getting hit, whether they sack you or when you throw the ball, you're getting hit. That plays in the quarterback's head to where it forces you to get rid of the ball soon or force you to throw a ball to where you don't want to throw it. So maybe yesterday would have been a good time to put Patrick O'Brien there for a series just so Tanner can come to the sideline and get his wits with him, calm down, and the coach can talk with him. But they didn't do that, and you saw what happened.
I would say if I was going to put him in, I would have put him on after the second pick six, and I would have just seen what happens. Maybe he provides a spark. Uh, maybe something happens. Maybe people rally around him. Maybe just a different, fresh face. But at the end of the day, it starts in the trenches. Yeah, that's where it is. We got beat up front. If Tanner's getting the ball and running for his life, or Patrick gets the ball and is running for his life, it's kind of the same deal. So that's when I would have done it. At this point, I think you go into the next game with Tanner as your starter. But you know that if something goes wrong again, another pick six right off the bat or something, I wouldn't hesitate to put Patrick in just to see what happens.
Well, that's how you got
Yeah,
Tommy. When you go ahead, Tommy. Go ahead.
yeah, you're to a point now in the season to where you have nothing to lose. And I know people saying it's still a conference and we still got the Big Ten. Well, the way they played the last 2 weeks, they're not going to win the Big Ten West. I'm sorry to say that. There's too many very good coach football teams out there in this conference that don't make mistakes. And we seem like we make more mistakes. We're beating ourselves right now. Nebraska's beating themselves right now. And so I don't care who the quarterback is right now until they sure up that offense line, until the coordinator figure out what they do best and do that. It's going to be what you saw yesterday. And you can't tell me Northern Illinois is better than 7 or 8 teams in the Big Ten. And Nebraska's going to face probably 5 of the top teams in the Big Ten. And if this is what they play, if the way they played yesterday is what's going to happen the rest of the season, Nebraska might win 2 more games. And that's hard for me to say, but they might win 2 more games based off the way they played yesterday.
Mandy asked, she wanted to know, why does Penn State lose everything and able to turn their program around so fast, and Nebraska is still repeating the same mistakes?
That's a phenomenal
Well,
question.
go ahead, Adam.
I was just going to say that's a phenomenal question I've asked myself because they went through a ton in Happy Valley, and they turned around and won the Big Ten championship last year. So to me, when Bill O'Brien came in there, he started doing things the right way, and he built a base. And I forget the name of their head coach in the moment. He built Vandy up, and then he came over from Vanderbilt, and
Franklin.
he's just what Bill O'Brien's done. And to me, it all starts with coaching in college football because you can have a great player, but he's not going to be there more than 4 years or 3 or whatever the case may be. So to build that up, to build that base, to build that foundation, it all starts with coaching. And to me, it all started with Bill O'Brien. And he didn't see the fruits of his labor, but it carried over. And now they're starting to see the fruits of his labor now with their current head coach.
Mm-hmm. For me, it's about recruiting. And I know Nebraska is starting to get the attention of 4 and 5 star guys. I know that. But I'm going to go recruiting territory. You're not, and I know Nebraska sold on California kids, and there's some very good California kids out there. We have some very good California kids on our staff, on our program now. But my issue with that is that when you go back and look at the history and tradition of Nebraska, go back and look at the history and tradition of Ohio State, go back and look at the history and tradition of Michigan and Penn State, they recruited kids in their territory, in their area. They solidified their territory, their state. One, they solidified their state. They got the best kids out of their state. Nebraska's not doing that. Okay? 2, they went and recruited kids that's going to play kids they're going to have to face in college. And until Nebraska starts seeing that, this is what's going to happen. Because, and I'm going to say this, and I'm saying a lot. When was the last time a California college with predominantly California kids won a national championship? And I'll wait for the answer for anyone to tell me that. And then, how many years has that been since then?
Was
So
it
for me, it starts there.
was it 2004 with SC?
That's the last time in my book.
Yeah,
And they cheated for that one. And they cheated for that one. So for me, the formula is easy. The formula is easy. You're playing in the Big Ten. Why go to California and recruit 80% of your players? I know that's what you know, but to be a top-notch head coach, you got to be ready to recruit out areas that you don't know, especially here in Nebraska, because we have a tradition. Coach Osborne did say that. He said we're not going to go down to Florida, Georgia, Alabama and recruit kids. We're not going to go out and try to get the best kids out of there. He didn't say we're not going to go to Texas and try to get the best kids out of there. You know, I think last year was the first year we didn't sign a Texas kid, or 2 years ago. That's unheard of at Nebraska. We used to have a pipeline in Texas. Now we're struggling to get 1 or 2 kids out of there. Something's wrong with that.
Well, Mike asks or makes the comments, why do we keep recruiting all these receivers and not spending time recruiting better linemen? However, so he's talking about recruiting here, better linemen. But then Rob says, hey, it seems like we have some talent on the O-line. Isn't coaching the suspect here?
You know, I had a conversation with one of my good friends yesterday, and he was actually at the game, and he was texting me through the game about how disappointing it was, how embarrassing it was. And the one comment I made to him was to say, yes, we went out and signed all these very good skilled players, receivers, and DBs. But the one part that we forgot about were linemen. I say we have some good offensive linemen, but we don't have enough. We don't have enough to push each other. If you go back and look at all the great offensive linemen in college football history, they've always had guys pushing the guys who are starting. So that way, if something were to happen, the one guy's not playing, you put another guy in, you don't lose anything. But what do we have back in the guys that we have? You tell me. I don't know. I don't see why. And I'm not saying this kid is a bad player because he's going to be a great player. Farniak. He's a redshirt freshman. Why is he playing as much as he's playing as a redshirt? Because he's the best that we have. Well, if you have a pipeline, which Nebraska calls themselves the pipeline to me, you should have people, offensive linemen should just be coming through year in and year out. You shouldn't have to start a freshman or redshirt freshman unless they truly are better than the people you have. If you're starting a redshirt freshman, that's telling me your pipeline is very thin when it comes to what you have in the back, what you have left.
So
Adam, go ahead.
I think the reason Riley focuses on skill position players because I grew up on the West Coast. That's what they focus on out there. It's about the quarterback. It's about the receivers. It's about all the speed. Like, watch these Pac-12 teams. There's not a whole lot of top first-round draft picks that come out of the Pac-12. I'm sure you're going to have some because there's 12 teams, but that's what they focus on. That's what Riley knows. I'm not saying that's what I agree with because I thought that was the big hole in our, not big hole, but the flaw in our recent recruiting class, and the flaw I see in this one, which is building to be something special, possibly. We'll see what happens with that, but that's what he knows. I think, and I'm going to go back to what you said about the in-state recruiting. I think you start with Nebraska and you get those in-state kids because there's something different about kids from Nebraska. There's something, the entire dream growing up a lot of times for these kids. Like, that was mine. I was born in Nebraska. You work harder in the weight room. You practice harder. You lift harder. You study harder. You push each other more. So to me, it starts there. And a lot of the beef comes from Nebraska. So if you want to go out west, wherever, to get these skill position athletes, I don't have an issue with that. But it starts with in-state recruiting, and it starts with the beef, in my opinion, up front.
Adam, I'm going to ask you this first because we get this question almost every week. Tommy's answered it at least, but you're a defensive guy. April wants to know, do you think she says she believes that the defensive coordinator should be sitting on the sideline. What is your thought about, the coach being on the sideline versus being up in the booth?
So the advantage to being in the booth is he can watch every play over and over. He can break it down. He can analyze every picture that they want to look at. So that's the advantage to being in the booth. Now, my issue personally that I have with that is when you gather the entire defense, at some point throughout the game, multiple times typically, you gather the defense. What just happened? What's going to happen? What are we changing? What are we doing? And you want the guy, your coordinator or the head coach, to be the guy gathering an entire unit, offensively or defensively. Well, Riley's an offensive guy, so he's going to talk to the offense. Langsdorf. I don't know who that guy is on the sidelines for the Black Shirts, right? I don't know who gathers it. It has to be somebody, but it should be your defensive coordinator. That's the guy. It should be. That's who the players are going to look to. So my thought is, I think Diaco should be on the sidelines. And keep in mind, they did play better on defense yesterday. I think he should be on the sidelines because somebody else, any of the other coaches, are equally qualified to break down those same plays and relay it over the headsets to Diaco, and then he could be the guy talking to the defense. Now, as far as him being in the booth, staying in the booth, from what I understand, it's what he's always done. When he was at Notre Dame, it's what he did. So I've always been, of the mindset, let the coach be who he is. If a coach is a yeller, let him yell. If he's a teacher, let him teach. If that's what he's always done, let him do that. But if things, and they have improved, we'll see how they are going forward. But if things don't improve, you might contemplate moving him back to the sideline, which in my opinion is where you need the head guy of a unit to be.
Perfect timing, Tommy. We lost Tommy for a second there.
Yeah, what was that question?
It's the one you've answered 100 times, whether Bob should be up in the booth or on the sidelines. And you've answered it the last couple of weeks. I think we've got that same question, but Adam just gave his, his thoughts were very similar to what you've said in the past. So Joshua just asked, real simple question. How do we stop the bleeding at this point?
Win. That's how you stop it. I mean, whether you win by 1 point or 10 points, you got to win. That's the only way it's going to settle the way people are feeling right now. They just want to win. They don't care about how many you win. Yes, they want to win by a large margin, but if you're winning, that's all Nebraska fans want. They want to see you put a great product on the field, and if you win, they're going to be happy with that. If you lose, but you play well, Nebraska fans will be happy. They're going to be disappointed, but they're going to be happy with that. But if you lose the way you lost yesterday, that's the issue that Nebraska's having. Nebraska fans and Nebraska people are having right now. I don't necessarily think you'd be having the outcry that you're having right now if Nebraska would have played early and they lost or Northern Illinois made a great play at the end, like a Hail Mary pass to win the game. But Nebraska offensively didn't look well at all yesterday. To me, it appeared when I listened to on the radio, it appeared to me they didn't even practice. They didn't know what kind of game plan they really wanted to do. And so that's why to stop the bleeding, you got to win. Winning cures everything.
He's right about the winning. I'm not going to argue with that. I think I'm going to go a little bit different direction. I'm going to say the mentality. I think because I listened to what some of the players had to say after the game yesterday, and it was your typical, we're not happy, we got to get better, sense of urgency, all that good stuff. But a couple of them used the word hiccup. Like there were some hiccups. Like I don't know if they're grasping that this is a little bit bigger deal than just a hiccup. A hiccup is something my 2-year-old gets that goes away in 20 minutes. This isn't going to go away in 20 minutes. So I think the standard of expectation is obviously different than it once was, but I think it just continually keeps getting lowered. And I think that they've started out 1-2 3 times in the past 59 years, twice since Riley's been head coach. And I think the standard of expectation keeps getting lowered to where now a loss to Northern Illinois, who's the team who in their last 10 games versus Big Ten teams has 6 wins. So they're a decent program, all the respect to them in the world.
Right.
But when you lose to Northern Illinois, it's not a hiccup. And I think it starts with the mentality, which carries from the head coach, which carries from the AD, which carries all the way down. And so I think the expectations, the mentality. I was talking to Christian Peter, and he's like, they had their black shirts taken away after some game, and they won. Perform at a level of expectation. It wasn't about winning; it was about dominating. Now it's just about a loss to Northern Illinois is a hiccup. So to me, it's about changing the mentality and the expectations.
Yeah, but
the bar has definitely changed.
But for me, the only way you can change the mentality of the game, you got to have kids on the roster who understand what it truly means to be a black shirt, what it truly means to put that scarlet and cream on and walk on that field in Memorial Stadium. Kids can say they understand it, but they don't understand it because they did. They will do everything in their power to make sure what happened yesterday wouldn't have happened. You'd have had 4 or 5 guys who'd have been up and down the sideline chewing somebody's ass or getting someone's face, trying to get people motivated. I heard there was none of that going on yesterday. Even one assistant coach would have done it. Charlie McBride, when things would have went bad, he would have been in the defensive line or defensive linebacker's face right then and there. Milt Tenniper would have been in the O-line face, not Conley. He would have been chewing them out. So it goes from the coaching staff not showing any fire. It goes to the players not showing any fire. But once again, it goes back to not understanding what that end really means. Until you start getting players on the team that understand that, it's going to be this, well, it's a hiccup. Damn it, I don't like hiccups. I don't like roadblocks and speed bumps either. But what do? You're trying to find a way to make sure those things don't happen again, or you don't run into those things again.
I see the question posed quite a bit about you guys. Do you guys get invites back, or do you see a lot of ex-Huskers coming back, alumni, and participating practices or hanging around to try to pass that, what it means to be a black shirt, what does it mean to wear scarlet and cream? Like, I see that question a lot, but I never hear really any good answers. Do they bring a lot of ex-alumni back for those things just to try to understand, to get people to understand the culture and what it really means?
I've been invited back to go back and speak with the team and speak with players, but my schedule's so hectic too. I don't have time to do that. I live in Omaha. The last thing I'm gonna do is take time in my schedule to drive down to Lincoln when I have a 14-year-old and 11-year-old kid. That's more important to me right now. To me, I'm a fan. I'm a fan right now, so I'm just like anybody else who sits there and watch it. I don't need to go to practices or.
I think we lost Tommy. Well, Adam, your thoughts?
Yeah, I was actually going to bounce back for a minute to understanding, putting on the scarlet and cream and putting on the N. And I think a lot of that starts with the in-state recruiting and bringing in kids that fully understand what it's about. When you bring in kids, and I grew up in the state of Washington, but I was born in Hastings, and every Saturday, my dad grew up in Giltner, small town Nebraska, revolved around Nebraska. Like Oregon State, Washington State, we're a distant second, third, fourth, and 1,000th in my mind to Nebraska. So I had an understanding. And I think when you have those kids, they get that understanding, and that's where a lot of that extra work, passion, and that difference maker comes through because it reverberates throughout the locker room. Now, as far as being invited back, I think there's kind of if you're around, you're welcome to come in. And I know some players have been invited. I've received an invite, and I'm going to be back between the Wisconsin-Ohio State game this year. It's one of those things where it's kind of you're welcome to come in, but I don't know that they regularly invite people, like we're trying to get this guy this week and this guy that week. I don't know if it's that type of situation.
I see that question a lot, so we've never approached it or answered, so I was just curious what you guys think. Well, let's see. I was going to ask, I'll ask you the big question because everybody in the thread, I won't say everybody, just asked this question. I was trying to wait for Tommy to be back on for this, but nevertheless, everybody is asking, do we make a change on the coaching staff or athletic director? Larry, the cable guy, apparently made a post about changing athletic director. There's been all types of mentions of everything from offensive coordinator to firing Riley to Sean. It seems early in the season to say that, but where do you stand on this? What do you think is the situation from the coaching staff and or athletic director?
I've always been of the mindset that we need to give Riley 4 to 5 years. And the reason I've had that mindset is because we fired a 9-win coach. Callahan didn't do well. Then we fired another 9-win coach. And so if you're looking at this from a recruit's perspective, if you're looking at it from another possible head coach's perspective, Les Miles was in the booth. I've seen a million things about him. They're going to look at it. And these guys have families. These guys, they like a little bit of job security. Coaching profession is a little bit different than the norm. But they are going to look at it like, wow, if I get 9 wins, that's not good enough. These other 2 guys went there and struggled. Maybe it's hard to win. Maybe the expectations are too high. There is no place like Nebraska. But from the outside looking in, that could be their perception. So I was like, we got to give him 4 or 5 years, give him a fair shot so we can at least say we did that. Plus, you never know what can happen throughout that time. Now, you start out 1 and 2 out of your first 3 years as head coach. It's rough. My thought is there's a point in firing him right now. It sends a heck of a strong message, some positive, some negative. But most coaches don't get fired until November. I don't see any point in firing anybody until November. There's a reason that doesn't happen. There's nobody you're going to pick up. There's really no, other than sending an insanely strong message, which again could be positive and negative. depending on how you're looking at it from an outsider's perspective, a recruit and a head coach. I think you see what happens. I think you see how the season progresses. I would like to give him a full. I'd like to see what happens in 2018. We're playing a murderer's row schedule. I think it's like Michigan, Ohio State, Michigan State, of course, Iowa, Wisconsin. I think King Kong's on the schedule somewhere. The Patriots are on there somewhere. The schedule is ridiculous next year. It's kind of like what Wisconsin had last year, and they still won the West. I'd like to see how Riley does with that schedule because that's truly going to tell us what he's about. But as far as this year, I think that leash got shortened a lot yesterday. So I think we see what happens until November, and then we make a call. But they got to understand, like, Eichhorst clearly there's a little bit of a disconnect between his understanding of Nebraska tradition and the fans' understanding. When you try to get rid of Black Friday games and things of that nature, and then all of a sudden you backpedal and say it was a mistake and we're going to try to keep it, it's clearly because of the backlash. He's got to educate himself a little bit more. And Riley has to understand that mediocrity is not okay here. It's not acceptable here. Hiccups are not okay and acceptable here. And then I say we could see what happens when November rolls around.
So, Tom, you probably figured out what the question is. There's a lot of people asking through the thread and the comments, and I've avoided it until the end here or until later. But the questions come around: do we make coaches changes, or do we need to make an athletic director change? Your thoughts on it?
Well, when it comes to athletic director, I think the Board of Regents made it very clear when they didn't give him a contract extension. I think this year right here is a telltale year for him. So I'm not even going to comment whether he should be fired or anything like that because the Board of Regents is going to make that final decision. And I think they made it clear when they didn't give him a contract extension when they gave Mike Riley one. Okay, so I'm going to say comment on that one. As far as a head coach, I think we've changed head coaches too many times here in the last 3, 4, 5, 6 years. So we're changing a head coach now. I don't think it's going to be the thing, make anything change. But I can say this. Last year, we went and basically cleared out the defense side of the ball with new staff, correct? And I said last year, instead of finding all the defensive coaches, we should look at the offensive coaches, see what their production was, because it wasn't like they were barn burners on offense last year. So I think maybe this year, if it doesn't get any better on offense, maybe you start looking at some of the guys on offense who aren't performing and change them instead of the head coach and let him go out and find some other guys to get the job done. But I just think that with his contract and what they're paying him, I think it's just going to be too much to try to get rid of him this year. You don't give him another extension, but you let him make adjustments on his staff. But it's still early to say. But that would be if I was athletic director at the end of the season and we're 6-6, that's the kind of conversation I would have with him instead of getting rid of him, because we've had so many changes here in the last 7, 8 years to where we don't want to be known as a school that when things don't go well, we're just going to fire the head coach and then bring in somebody else and they don't get the job done in 4 or 5 years, we're going to fire them. No. When you make a change at Division I level in a power conference, it usually takes 5 years before you start seeing the fruits of your labor. Now, there are some schools who were able to do it earlier because they had talent, they brought the right coach in, he brought the right staff, and they coached guys up. But at Nebraska, when you change it from one philosophy to another philosophy, you're trying to change the culture of a program. I think right now, firing Mike Riley right now might not be the answer, because when you bring another guy in, you got to change the culture again. You have to go start recruiting different players again, because I'm pretty sure they're going to change the style of offense. Maybe it's time to start looking at the assistant coach and say, okay, Mike Cavanaugh, you're not getting the job done. The offensive line not improving. Maybe we got to make a change there. Daniel Langsdorf, you're in charge of the offense. You got a quarterback who's thrown 7 interceptions in the first 3 games. Maybe you got to make a change there. I don't know what the answer to that is, but that's where I will start first by saying get rid of Mike Riley, because changing the head coach, which means you're going to change all the assistant coaches too. So you have new coaches coming in here trying to learn what the kids is. They're going to change the culture again. So I think you start there, wait till the season, see where the season progresses, and then start making changes on staff, whether the head coach.
All right, last question for you guys. Let's get back to something more realistic next week. What is the one thing that we hope to see change or adjustments we can make for next week?
Pass protection. That's what I want to see, pass protection.
All right, Adam?
That is. I have 2 that are tied. Honestly, pass protection probably leads into mine, because if he's getting protected, his interceptions will go down. Since he said pass protection, I'll say no interceptions. That would have been mine. But if he's getting protected, he's going to throw a lot less picks. So they're kind of tied hand in hand.
Donovan says he just wants a win. That's what he wants for next week.
I think we all just want to win.
So I think that's the yeah.
Yeah.
Just win.
All right. Well, this actually turned out pretty good. We've never done this with this technology before, and we weren't sure how it was going to play out, especially with bringing Adam on as well. So seems to work out okay. Adam, where can we find you every day? Where you at? Where you're? I know you're posting all the time.
Oh yeah, each and every day. You can find me. Easiest spot to find me is omaha.com/character, the Character Chronicles every morning. We got game predictions. My kids come on once a week. I got a guest that comes on. Hopefully I get Tom. Tom, are you going to join me this week?
What day? What day are you talking about?
How about right after we hang up here?
I actually got to run to an event right after we get off here, but let's try Tuesday. I get back in Omaha on Tuesday.
Okay, that works. I'll hit you up after this. Yeah, so I got a guest that comes on every week. I answer fan questions, and then immediately following every Husker game, also I'm on Facebook and Twitter, official Adam Carricker and @AdamCarricker94.
All right. And everybody can find this, of course, on or over at facebook.com/touchdowntommy, which is where they're watching it right now. And we'll do this every Sunday at 10 a.m. We'll be back next Sunday. You in town next Sunday, Tommy?
I'll be back in the studio.
All right, I'm here. Yeah, all right. So we're here next Sunday, and then the week after that, we're traveling again. So we're going to be going through this challenge again to see how it works. But until then, any last thoughts? Any last words before we call it quits?
Hey, I just want to see Nebraska improve this week, go out and play well versus Rutgers. I think they play Rutgers.
Yeah.
You know, if they do that, they can start righting the ship. And then right now, although their main concern right now is finding a way to beat Rutgers. That's the only concern they need right now.
For me, obviously, you want to get the win. I feel like that's obvious. For me, I want to see I love the improvement I saw on defense. I love that we're starting to get a little bit of pressure. We're starting to bring some more blitzes and things of that nature. I love the improvement on the defensive side of the ball. I want to maintain that. For me, I want to see, other than just the wins, I want to see the improvement. I want to see no big plays given up on special teams. Let's be consistent. Let's not make any big mistakes over there. And on offense, as Tommy and I mentioned, protect the quarterback. Let's play better up front, and let's take care of the football.
All right. Hold up. If you guys want to hang on for just a second, I'm going to end the Facebook Live. Again, we'll be here next Sunday at 10 a.m. Thanks for, there's quite a few. Thanks for tuning in. Oh, wow. All types of great comments. Everybody said they enjoyed this, especially having Adam on to chime in and give feedback. You'll be ready. All right. A lot of good feedback. So we'll be back next week.